My name is George Green, and my involvement with the UFO situation, a little bit of background of this. I was a school nerd, if you want to call that, and in high school I was in electronics very heavily. When I was 18, I joined the Air Force. Air Force put me through a year of electronics school. I already had 2 years of electronics school. Again, I was born in Denver, Colorado, to give you an idea. What happened is that the Air Force, my first assignment happened to be Edwards Air Force Base, which is the Air Force Research and Development Center out in California. Now this base is 60 by 90 miles, and it's all in the high desert.
What year was that?
It's in 1958.
Okay.
Anyway, my assignment was airborne communications. I was assigned to all of the stuff. Now, Edwards does all the testing on all the new vehicles that the Air Force has ordered or want to have, or civilian contracts are made. So what they did is I was cleared for top secret. They would send me out on the airplanes, and one morning, you know, to fix them if they needed repair or whatever. One morning, it was the last week in August in 1958, to give you an idea of timing. It was late, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and they assigned me to go out and do the post-flight inspection on the X-15, the forerunner of the space shuttle. Now, it lands out in the desert because it's nothing more than a rocket on skids, frankly. It doesn't have wheels. Anyway, I finished doing the inspection. I had a Jeep that they gave me to travel all over. Anyway, my problem was it was 100 degrees and they notified me that I had to come back in and check in. My problem was that they gave me a Jeep that I could run around with, but I had to put 25 miles a day on the Jeep. Well, it was 10 o'clock, 100 degrees, and I'm looking around. There was 2 hangars I hadn't been to. Now, I was cleared for top secret, and I said, well, I'm going to go over and look in. So I walked, I took the Jeep, went over, and I opened up the hangar, nobody around, but there's a big round disc inside the hangar. I said, wow, this is a neat looking craft, but I had just worked on the X-15 and the B-58, all the, you know, the X model stuff. So this is a new one. I like to, maybe I want to work on that. So, of course, I tooled back into my commander, and I said, I finished doing the X-15, when can I work on that round craft? And he said, you saw that? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, that's an ion-powered craft designed by Sikorsky, the helicopter people, for use in outer space. And I said, great, when can I work on it? And he says, you can't. It's still a civilian project. And I said, oh, okay, didn't say another word about it. So anyway, I go back to my room. I checked in. It's 10 in the morning, late in the afternoon. My buddy happened to be the base photographer. Now, Edwards at that time had 25,000 civilians, and there was only 800 airmen, and I was one of the airmen. So anyway, I talked to my buddy, and I said, slip me some pictures of that round craft. And he says, they showed that to you? And I said, well, I was out there 10 feet away from it. And he says, what'd they tell you? And I gave him the story. There was an ion-powered craft. And he says, don't say another word, follow me. So I went with him over to the photo lab. Now he showed me pictures of the craft. Now I'm 10 feet away from it, so the pictures are great.
So that was a Manhattan craft, or?
The circular craft, the alien craft.
Oh, so it's not the handmade?
No, this is a craft as big as this room. The hangar was, and the craft was as big as this room. So give you an idea. Anyway, I'm sitting here looking at the pictures, but the 2 dead aliens got my attention. Because all of a sudden now I'm looking, I didn't see the aliens, I just saw the pictures that my commander took. I mean, my photographer buddy said. So what happened is, I was a little upset. Why did my commander lie to me? So I went down and confronted him with it. And the first half hour, frankly, was debriefing and what they could do to me on my top secret clearance. So I said, okay, fine. After that, they do some damages. I wasn't worried about the money part because it wasn't a big fine anyway in '58. It was $10,000. But the idea was the jail time bothered me a little. Anyway, I said, fine, I won't do anything. And he said, look, when the government's ready to tell the truth about UFOs and ETs, they will. You stick to the story. Fine. So And he said, by the way, next weekend is Armed Forces Day and everybody comes out. They wouldn't let the people go out that far, but if somebody would happen to see one, I'm supposed to give them the iron-powered, craft deal. Now, people don't know anything about it, but in 1958, when this occurred, we just had black and white TV. There was only black and white pictures. There was no color pictures even. Kodak was out. So this gives you an idea of the terminology. Well, so the next weekend they put me on duty on Armed Forces Day. Within 30 days I was transferred off the base. Because of my specialty in airborne, I also worked on the F-104 as a starfighter. Anyway, they said they're having a skirmish over in Quemoy off of Japan, and I was one of the few people who could work on it, so they transferred me off the base. They got rid of me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I get over to Japan, didn't have anything better to do there, so I went to Stoshbashi University to spend my time. I still took care of it, but I took care of, that was a MATS base that they sent me to, that's military air supply, which big stuff on it. Anyway, I was there for a couple of months, about 3 months, and then they wanted to make an instructor out of me in electronics, so they sent me down to Biloxi, Mississippi, and so I spent a month learning how to do that. And then they're getting ready to put me in class, and then because I was accepted at Colorado School of Mines, which was the #1 engineering school in the world for earth sciences, I asked my senator friend, I said, get me out of this crazy place, I want to go to Colorado School of Mines. And anyway, rather than getting me out of the service, they cross-trained me into nuclear missiles. I became a guidance technician on the Hound Dog nuclear missile, which is the drop from the B-52s. So I became kind of the expert on what goes on that. Well, I made it through the Air Force for my 4-year connection, but I got accepted to Colorado School of Mines, which is really hard to get accepted to. Except for they decided to extend my career because there's only a few of us in the Air Force with the training that I had. Well, after 2 weeks, I was considered a career airman, they said. But I called my senator and I got an early out, believe this, even though I spent 4 years in. And I went to Colorado School of Mines, and that's where I majored in geophysics, just to give you an idea. Anyway, what happened is during this period of time afterwards, I knew UFOs existed. I didn't say anything about it. I just kept my secrets.
How you know?
Pardon?
How you know?
Yeah, because I'm sitting there next to a craft.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you say before that.
Well, before that, yeah, I didn't know. I didn't pay attention to it.
Okay.
Just another movie. That's all he looked at.
All
It's a
right,
movie.
but after you saw it, then
Yeah, now I'm sitting here. I know it's for real.
you saw it.
Hey, I'm 10 feet away from the thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, from that point, what happened is I got out and worked at Mines. I went and worked with my dad, and he was the 3rd largest meat packer. So we won't go into the business end of it because we got to go to the UFO end of it. Well, I got in the game of Monopoly. I was building, and I had a banking. I was doing kind of like Trump, frankly. I had all the state stuff. I was building in 22 states. I had shopping centers, office buildings, motels, restaurants, all kinds of stuff. I was partners with some other people. I was in the oil business. We were drilling oil. I was vice president of King Resources, the guys that had the offshore oil in Alaska when they first opened that. First billionaire we had was a friend. Anyway, I built a house in Aspen, Colorado, which is, kind of an interesting place. My housekeeper had a book called UFO Contact from the Pleiades. Incredible color photographs of exactly the same thing I saw at Edwards Air Force Base 20 years prior. I'm looking at this book and I said, I got to get one of these because this is really good. So anyway, I called on the phone to the couple that had published the book, and I said, I need one. And they said, well, we don't have any right now. And I said, well, the couple was down in Phoenix, where I'm at right now. And I said, when I come down, I want to talk to you. So I flew down here. I was building in Phoenix. I owned an office building on Central Avenue, a motel in the north end of town, and 3 restaurants. So just to give you an idea, it was a game of Monopoly out there. Well, I come down here and I said, I need to get a copy of that book for sure. And they said, well, we can't help you, but we're getting ready to print the next book. And I said, so, well, when you give me one of the new books? And they said, well, we don't have the money to do it. And I said, so what's your problem? And they said, well, we need the money to do it. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. Don't use my name anywhere. Don't say another word about it. I'll loan you the money to publish the book. You go ahead and publish it. I want my copy, of course. But when you get through selling the books, enough of them to pay me my money back, that's all I want you to do. I don't want interest or anything else. I want to be I'm totally away from everything. You guys are going to show the truth, which I know is, but I'm just financing it. So anyway, we made the agreement. 90 days later, they sent me accounting. I got the accounting of the stuff. They had to receive 3 times the amount of money I gave them, but there was no check. I was a little upset about that. I called them on the phone. I said, where's my money? And they said, well, we found out who you are. You don't need it. I said, that was not the agreement. So what happened when I was there, of course, I filed suit against them for the recovery of my money because my attorneys were here and didn't have anything better to do anyway. So I said, go file against these kids. So they did. But by that time, that 90-day period, I was given incredible information on the Billy Meyer story because that's what these pictures were in Switzerland. So my wife and I from Phoenix, I said, let's just take a vacation out of this thing. So we grabbed the next plane. I flew off to Zurich, Switzerland. You're aware of that.
You know Billy Meyer personally?
Let me tell you the rest of the story. As I get to Zurich, Switzerland, I rented a car and I went the 45 minutes up to Billy Meyer's house, which is in Hintertz-Rudy. I'm up here, I'm knocking on the door, click, 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 and a young lady answered named Bruni, and I said, my name's George Green, I put the money up for publishing your books down there. And I said, I'd like to talk to Billy. I want to see if I can help him and also get this story taken care of. She says, I don't think so. She says, the Americans have not treated us well. I said, well, you go back and tell Billy the buck stops here. So anyway, she left. About 15 minutes later, she came back. She says, Mr. Green, I'm sorry. Shirley MacLaine was here 2 months ago, and she promised to help us as nothing has happened. And I said, well, I can't see Billy. I'm not going to do anything. It's late in the afternoon. My wife and I will probably make a vacation out of this. I'm going to head off to Innsbruck, Austria tomorrow then. So I said, but where's the closest hotel? So she told us, and we checked into the hotel. Next morning, knocking on the door, it's Bruni. Handed me a 2-page message from Quetzal, the Palladian commander who was in direct contact with Billy, with my name on it, inviting me back over to the compound, and I won't go into any more details, but I'm sitting here, the Palladian commander knew about me and a little bit about my stuff. So I ended up going back over there frankly, for the next 10 days, got my mind blown because everything I thought I knew about what's going on. Now I got engineering and law and all kinds of stuff as a history, but about everything has been fudged. It might be partially true, but not. Anyway, when I was with Billy, and to give you some ideas, I'm sitting there at the same time with the Umos were there, and they gave Billy a gun to shoot holes in the tree. You've probably seen those. Well, I was there at the same time. Well, in fact, we were joking about it. I said, I want to take some pictures myself. Well, they said, the extraterrestrials say, it's okay, we'll let you take 3 pictures. Well, I had a little roll of 36 black and white film at that time, so I took 3, but I don't know if you've seen the one. Billy took the gun and shot a hole in the top of the tree. Up there it says there's a hole about 50 feet above the ground on the hole with one of those weapons too. So I took the 4th one, even though they told me only to take 3. When I come back, when I got the roll filmed, roll number 21, 22, and 23 was there. 24 was blank. All the rest of the film was totally okay, so they could stop anything they wanted to. Anyway, we'll finish that. While I'm there, I asked Billy, I says, we're asking questions about the universe, and he's got it in all his notes and all the stuff, but I decided to walk up about a block away from it to its neighbor farmer, and I knocked on the door, and he invited me out, and I said, have you seen anything recently? Because Billy they don't normally see that. And he just says, come on with me. And I went around with him behind his house. He was milking his cow, but there's a huge footprint in the mud. He said it had a guy 7 meters tall leaning against the barn. I said, well, I can see the footprint. I didn't see the man, but I was all excited then. So I got back up and ran back over to Billy. Billy took me, he said, just sitting there shrugged. He said, don't worry about it. He took me in the back room, and he had little plaster casts of little people, footprints. He says these are, like little dwarfs or whatever you want to call them. He says in the universe is all kinds of sizes and shapes. So you don't know what you're going to expect when you're in contact. And I said, well, okay. Anyway, my problem that became in next, Billy showed me some documents that he and a Greek priest were taken to the extraterrestrials took him over to a tomb where wrapped in resin was the original writings of Judas Iscariot, who was ascribed to Christ. So I'm looking at these documents which were done when Christ was alive. The people should know the truth because the Bibles have been written. So, there's 200 versions, for instance, of the King James Bible. Well, anyway, I'm looking at the documents, and Billy and the Greek priest, the Greek priest is the one that translated the information from Aramaic, and they did it into Schweizerdeutsch, Deutsch, High German. Well, we had a college kid translate that into English. Now, you understand, we got a lot of translations of the documents, and I couldn't verify any of this thing. So I'm looking at this stuff, and anyway, when I'm with Billy, I said, now, my problem I have, Billy, I've agreed with you, and the ETs were there. I've agreed to act as they're publishing their information and help you distribute the stuff. I said, I have one real problem. You have given away the worldwide rights to your story to these people down in Phoenix who I'm suing. So I said, we have to get this thing squared away. Now, the Talmud, however, was the original writings of that. It wasn't Billy's who did it. He was part of the transcribing of it, but that information wouldn't have been covered by the contract. I said, before I go any farther, because I've been building I was building in 22 states. I was kind of attracted to that, but because of my position, you're always getting sued by people. I said, well, I don't want to get sued on this crazy deal, so let me handle it. I'll give it to my attorneys in Beverly Hills. They're attorneys for Screen Actors Guild. And so I come back over and gave it to them, and I said, look, I made a deal with Billy Meyer and the ETs to publish their information. So what happened is he said, give me the papers. He thought I was nuts because I'm talking about ETs, but he just said, give me the information. I said, fine. Anyway, about 5 weeks later, called me on the phone. He said, come down to my office. So I went to at 1800 Avenue of the Flakes, so we joke about it, the Avenue of the Stars in Beverly Hills. Anyway, my wife and him, or myself, we went up to the attorney's office at Dern, Mason, and Plown. Anyway, Dern took me in and he says, we have a judge that will hear it right away, but you got to get Billy over here because the lawsuit's to get Billy taken care of. So from his office, I called Billy on the phone. I said, Billy, I've got it all arranged. But you got to come over here and appear in front of the judge for an hour or two. And since you don't have any money, I'll pay for your trip and everything. Billy responded. He says, I'm not leaving. Remember, I showed you pictures of the West Coast destroyed by an earthquake. I saw pictures of San Francisco. I said, oh, that's interesting, for that. I said, well, if you're not going to go over here, we have to have something else going on then. Maybe the ETs will help make sure what I'm doing is, this is a real live X-Files, you want to know it. So anyway, I said, okay, I'll work on this. So anyway, we go down. At that time, I had a little 450 SL Mercedes, a little convertible. We got out of the office, and I'm heading towards the airport. In broad daylight, the ETs had one of their beam ships following us. I was 50 feet away from me on the highway. Now, we did this for over half an hour. Now, this is, I'm looking around to other people see me. I ran my Mercedes up to 100 miles an hour. It would go right along with it, and it stopped dead. It would stop just there. So all we know that we're being monitored on everything we're doing, too. Anyway, it was an interesting part of my story to get verification that's going on. Well, since I'm stuck with all this thing, I said, well, we'll have to let the ETs figure another way. I said, the only thing I can really do on this thing is work on what they call it, the Talmud, or the teachings of Emmanuel, which was Christ's real name, Matthew 1, verse 24. Anyway, I said, before I go that, because I don't like lawsuits, I got enough of those, we'll send them to some people to verify the documents. Well, another man named Dr. Jim Deardorff was involved. He was, quote, a born again. He says, I'm going to disprove the documents. I said, go for it, because I don't want to be involved with something that's not right. So anyway, he took it and ended up proving the documents, and people that are interested go to tjresearch.com on the internet. You can read all the research on it. They are the true writings of what the Bible's supposed to come, and you can see all the differences in how they change things, which is really fascinating. I'll give you, as an illustration, the so-called Ten Commandments. My pet peeve is, thou shalt keep the Sabbath day holy. What day is it? The correct answer is every day. How we can separate people is make them argue against what day to do it. You give thanks every day, whether it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever yourself, for your journey. The other one is, that I use as a pet peeve, is thou shalt not kill. The real commandment is thou shalt not murder thy fellow man in thought or deed, because everything is thought. If you look at it, in the Bible it says in the beginning there was a word.
So the thoughts they can kill it?
Pardon?
The thoughts they can kill it?
Yeah, in the beginning, yeah, thought can kill. In the beginning it was thought. Words are just thought out loud. So everything is a product of the thought, as the ETs are telling me, of the creation. So the creation, thinking, we're a particle of the thought of the creation, and we have certain laws to follow that we have to on a spiritual basis.
The first creation was in the mind and then take a physical.
Oh, it's even bigger than that. We have not only this creation, but there's many of them, and there's many universes.
Yeah.
And planet Earth, this is the information that I got from talking to the ETs, like you and I. They're humanoid, the ones that I were involved with. The ETs say what we've looked at is planet Earth was engineered, and they use the word engineered, for 500 million people. That's the maximum it could sustain to stay in balance. So the four basic laws of the universe is the law of attraction. In other words, the first one is what you put out, you're going to get back. Or what Christ said, what you sow, you shall reap. The second one is the law of intent. What are your thoughts? What is the intent of that thought being manifest? The third law is the law of allowance. You have to allow that thought to manifest. The fourth law, which is important for people to think about, is the law of balance. Well, look at planet Earth. Are we in balance? Totally upside down right now. We're also in a position, according to the ETs, this cycle of the planet. We have a 26,000 year cycle we're about to end. So all this thing, I want to know as much information as I can possibly get from the ETs. And what I've done is made agreement for them to be their publisher. And I end up publishing some books, which I offer for people to go on my website,
Sure.
nohoax.com, nohoax.com. And the first book is called The Handbook for the New Paradigm. Now, you can download it free, because it isn't the money. I'm trying to help. We have a planet that's in major trouble. And I happen to be, when I'm playing my game of Monopoly, in between doing all this stuff, I was invited into little private meetings. One day I flew up to Aspen, Colorado, walked in and the world leaders were there, and I said, what am I here for? They said, we'd like you to be the finance chairman for the next president. And I said, president of what? They said, president of the United States. This is 2 years before I became president.
Cool.
That's the next question I asked was,
Okay.
next question I said, who's going to be the next president? And they said, Jimmy Carter. I said, Jimmy who? And he said, well, he's a Democratic governor of Georgia. And I said, I've been voting Republican. Paul Volcker, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, walked over and he said, son, don't worry about it. We control them both.
I'm sorry, who is this? You said the private meeting with who?
The world leaders.
What?
I'll give you some more people that were
Okay.
there. Anyway, I'm sitting there.
How they know that he will be the next president?
It's all set up. Our government is so corrupt. Everything's lit up. They only put whatever they want into and they follow it. I'll give you more of the story, okay? Now, my next question is then, I just started this $100 million project. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll put it on ice. In other words, warehouse it. I said, who with? And they told me, and I said, you can. My next question I have is, what the hell does a finance chairman do? They said, well, you sat with Ted. So I'm with Ted Kennedy right next to me. And Ted says, George, you're really good with money. We're going to send you out to all the state Democratic functions, and you're going to meet some real foxy ladies. Just then, my daughter walked in across the room, and Ted looked at her and he said, wow, I got to go to bed with that. And I said, no, you don't. That's my daughter, and she's 14. He says, I don't care. I was livid. I got up, didn't say another word to Ted. I walked across the room. I'm sitting with Pierre Trudeau and his wife, the Prime Minister of Canada. Now, we had world leaders in the room. I'm sitting down there, okay, with him, Pierre and I were doing okay, but I'm looking down at his wife, and there's a little half cigar box full of white powder, cocaine. I said, there's something wrong with this picture. Now, I was up there on a Friday. It was a long weekend. You know how we have holidays on Monday? Anyway, I said, before I do this, my ego was on the line. I said, last week I was at the Beverly Hills Hotel with Bill Levitt. That's Levittown, Pennsylvania, Levittown, New York, because I'm building, you know, a $100 million project, or was going to. I said, before I make my mind, fill me in on what's going on. Well, Henry Kissinger at this time says, in the meeting, he says, the number one problem we have on the planet is there's too many people. We're increasing the population by 250,000 a day, 2.5 million every 10 days. The planet can't take it anymore. And I said, well, give me more of your details. And I listened to this all over the time. Anyway, at the end of the meeting, well, Paul Volcker and I flew back to Denver on the plane from Aspen down to Denver at the airport. They stopped the airplane about 100 yards from the terminal so Volcker could get out of the plane. Remember, he's Secretary Treasurer. I mean, the head of the Federal Reserve. So anyway, at this point, I'm looking at this thing. Now, I knew that the Federal Reserve is a private bank, has nothing to do with our government. So these are the things that are coming out to me in spades. So that weekend, I flew to Washington, D.C., about a few blocks north of the White House. There's a company formed called the World Watch Association, you know, or the Population Institute. Anyway, I wanted there to see all the figures that they were talking about to get to their attention, because what they had to do is said they're going to reduce the world's population and, you know, how they're going to do it. So I'm sitting in on the meetings, but what they're telling me, I wasn't too sure about what they said, because I'm sure the planet at that time, I wasn't following a lot of the different subjects that are out there. Yeah, the planet can do this. When I look at the Population Institute, they're exactly right. We do not have the resources to cover the population. Well, Henry et al., it's going back where the extraterrestrials told me they engineered this planet for 500 million people. That's the goal of the one world order. The one world guys were my friends, the ones that control Congress. They actually put the money up to make sure these people in, provided they do something. That's like, I'm sitting here with a list of things that Jimmy Carter had to do when he got elected as president.
Can you name the people who was in this private meeting?
Well, I'm not going to do that, because then one of the things, I gave you a couple people that were in there. I could give you more, but I'm not going to do that. We got enough. I'm giving you some now that I'm okay. Just, you know.
You say only Henry Kissinger.
Well, Kissinger, and you've got Pierre Trudeau was there. You got Ted Kennedy was there. You know, this kind of. The people are there that are sitting down there and. You know,
Probably from Russia also?
No, there wasn't any Russians at all there. It was all Americans.
From which, okay, because you say world.
Well, there were some other countries that were involved, but there are only a few little ones, because no matter where they're at, they're controlled and set down. Now, Russia, these are other stories. I was in Berlin before they took the wall down, and I got into Russia. I've been to China before they opened it up to the people. I was with the world leaders over there. And their last comment to me, it's 5,000 years, it's our turn to run the world. And they're doing that right now. They're buying up the world. And they don't tell you what they have as far as, materials. So it's all gaining on that thing. Well, we're skipping the story back up to
Okay.
the extraterrestrials again, because that's where we're sticking at.
Yeah.
Well, the extraterrestrial thing is the same problem. Again, I'm looking at all the details they're talking about on so-called one world order. I used to run around with these guys, the guys that tell how Congress is to work and all that. And they all have their, let me tell you how it works. I was also a principal in the securities business, registered financial principal and a broker-dealer. So stocks and all this kind of stuff, I helped develop some of the things that they have right now, which has put our country in the disaster scene it's right now. The United States fiscal year is September 30th. They don't tell you how far in debt they are. They only tell you the debt that's due this year. And it's insolvent. So their plan is exactly what Jimmy Carter was given. They call it the Plan 2000. The first thing he had to do was, the first thing on line, give away the Panama Canal. Remember the United States had that? Well, that was number one on the list. The next one, he was to get World War III started. That's all in the population reduction program. That was the deal over Iraq. They were hoping that Iraq would throw up with the stuff that they've got to go back after, as they said, their target at that time was Israel with a nuclear bomb. That was to begin World War III. That's still on the table. So you got to watch the Middle East. I'm telling everybody right now. The other thing, economically, at that time, the old days, we had paper money. And since they developed all the credit cards and everything, I was invited to another meeting. I was invited to build an enemy prisoner war camp in downtown Las Vegas.
Something come to my mind. Maybe President Trump is going to do this dirty work.
No, they always have somebody else to do it. Trump's a wild card. When you ask the question, he's a wild card right now because he was not put in there by any of the guys behind the scenes because he'd already run the game on the thing. The only problem is, in my feeling with it, I have to watch and see what's going on over the next few months because I'm getting the information on stuff right now, because as a date now, this is in February, that we're going to begin World War III probably between now and June.
This year?
Of this year. And Europe is going to be gone. You're going to have everything is going. Now, the Chinese are sitting down with 100 million men army, whether you know that. Hey, there's 25,000 Russians in Spokane, Washington right now. You got the whole West Coast, however, is going to be taken out by bombs. There's 3 Russian submarines on the East Coast, 2 on the West Coast. The Russians are now putting nuclear missiles over in as you know, in Cuba, right this second. This is all public knowledge, but people don't put the pieces together.
But that sounds very scary.
I don't want you to get scared. I want you to get prepared. Therefore, when I made the deal with the ETs, they say we can change this by reading the handbook, Embracing the Rainbow and Becoming, which are books on my website, nohoax.com. And you can download them. If you want hard copies, I expect you to pay the freight and whatever it is, wherever you are. But you can do it at this minute to give you an idea. Now, my last messages are not very good because I've been doing this for quite a while. It says that there's too few to make any that are waking up to what's going on to rethink the ending of the story that mankind set up. Because what story is put together is by a small group of people that control all political things about everywhere. Only wild cards in the whole deal is China, and Russia is sitting down with a guy that says, hey, I know the game too, we'll play it. They have their problems too. And people forget how big Russia is even. You know, how many time zones is it? It's like the United States. People don't know how big Alaska is, which is you go from Miami to Seattle. That's the size of Alaska. So all these things are coming to a play right now. You got Trump opening up, getting rid of a lot of useless people that are spending the so-called money. Well, the money doesn't really exist, as they say. It's really funny, but when we got through talking about all this stuff, and I'm sitting here I'm playing the big game of Monopoly with money, you know, doing all the good stuff. Well, what happened is, back to my dad's packing house, to give you a real quick cover. My dad was in the meat packing business. That's where we go out and we killed animals. And when you did that, we sold the meat back to the government. Now, in the United States, the Packers and Stockyards Act says when we kill the animal, I got to pay for it in 24 hours. They turn around, we would process the animal and sell the meat to the government. We would get paid 2 to 3 months down the line. Well, because we were dealing in such large amounts, there was millions of dollars. My job for my dad was to go down to all the banks and borrow against their accounts receivable. So what I do is I take my government receivables, go to the bank and borrow, but I was limited by the amount of money that that bank had. They can only loan so much. Well, I had borrowed all the limit, almost every bank in Denver, because of what's going on, where I'm from. And so what happened is one of the bankers called and he says, "You got a lot of friends with money," which we did. I said, "Have them go deposit their money in our bank and we'll be able to give you some more." And I said, "Before we do that, let me look at your books." And they said, okay. And I went down and I said, "I got a solution for both of us." And I says, "First of all, let's look at what you got. You're giving people a TV set if they put in $10,000 for 1 year." And he said, "That's right." And I said, "According to your books, you're spending about 3% in advertising." He said, "That's right." And I said, "I got a better deal. Pay me the 3%. I'll get you all the money you want." So they ordered $5 million, all right? They paid me 3%, only after I put the money into the bank. What I did is I called you on the phone, because you had $10,000. I wrote out a check to you in advance for 2%. Now the bank at that time paid 5%. I gave you 2. That's 40% increase on your money, no risk. Everybody's happy. Okay, now I put the $5 million in the bank. The bank, because they're members of the franchise called the Federal Reserve, even though it's not a Federal Reserve, they're allowed to loan out 10 times that amount, or $50 million. Now, if they put out $50 million and they got 8% return, that's $4 million. I'm paying what? Me, $150,000? The problem became in that whole game is, at the end of 1 year, when your certificate came up for renewal, who did you call when it came up to get renewed? You called me because you wanted the 2% again. If the bank wouldn't pay, I would jerk the money out of the bank, and then what happens? Only 2 things could happen. FDIC liquidated the bank, or the Federal Reserve advanced money to keep it going. So I became a big attention, because the bankers the banker themselves told all the other banks about me. And my friends with money told all their friends with money about me. So I had millions of dollars coming into my office every day. I had absolutely nothing to do other than telling you where to do with your money. And we're all having it. It's a win-win thing, right?
You're a smart man.
Well, here's what the problem came in. If a bank didn't want the money, and let's say the bank, what happened is one of the banks I put the money into, he sold it to somebody else and they didn't know about the deal. So I pulled the $5 million out of the bank, so I broke it. I had nothing to do with the bank. So what happened is the Federal Reserve notified the state of Colorado to license me. I said, "Bring it on. I love exams, you know." And they said, "Well, we don't know what to do." I said, "What's your problem?" And he says, "Well, we've never had this request." And I said, "Well, so if you don't have the request, make it up then, give me a license." And they said, "Well, we got to have something to do that with." I said, "What's your problem?" They said, "We don't know what money is." And I said, "Well, we'll have to think about that." I said, I got an answer for us. I have my buddy, Senator Peter Dominic, which is another friend. When he goes back to D.C., I'll have him bring me the accounting book for the IMF and the World Bank, based out of Switzerland, right? Make sense? So if I got their accounting book, then we can get a definition of money for a worldwide basis. Doesn't that make sense? I got the book, and this is the funny part about the deal. As you and I are speaking, I'll bring you, this is the 1 page out of the book, the definition of money. Anyway, this is for people that really want to know what money is. And you, of course, are sitting down here looking at the thing. Take a picture of it. And so people can see what money is according to their book. And anyway, if you've got that, you can set it down to see what money is. Well, you find out that they don't have a definition of money. It's got so many definitions, there's no way they could do it. So I tell them the state, I'm sitting there laughing about it. I says, how in the hell are you going to do that? But I have a solution for you. And I said, the solution is, let's consider money some kind of security. And of course, they loved that. So they said, but what you're doing, you have to be a principal. I said, bring it on. Anyway, I became a registered financial principal and a broker-dealer and a securities underwriter of all securities. And then I analyzed that whole thing. I said, another lie. It's a big gambling casino out here that's being manipulated. So it's real happening. That's our stock market. That's all set up on it. Well, how that worked out, it kept going on. I'm sitting here going for a while. Now, the banks didn't know what to do with me because I still had money. I was still following with the state because I'm the only guy in the United States with a license to sell money. The next thing happened after that, and the Federal Reserve sent a letter to every bank in the United States not to do business with me. So remember, I'm drawing attention to everybody. I mean, you can see the reason how I got elevated to the top. Well, Jane Shaler, he's the president of U.S. Life Savings and Loan in Los Angeles, called me. She says, maybe we will help you. We got the savings and loans, and they loan money for the real estate. In other words, the mortgages on all of them. I said, let me look at your books. So I went over and I said, I have a solution. We can all have fun. I'll make together 1,000 mortgages, put 1,000 of them. My problem as an underwriter, I have to guarantee that it's a market and I have to guarantee to be able to buy the stock. If I put together 1,000 mortgages, how do you determine the price of the 1,000 mortgages? Each of them's got a different interest rate, different payment date, and everything else. I said, I don't have a problem. I'll fly to New York and I'll talk to my buddies up there about how we can get a solution. So I'm sitting in New York for lunch, and I could tell my guys, I said, I need a solution to this. And my one buddy says, I know how to do it. We're going to make money on this thing. And I said, what's that? He let us insure them. We'll insure your package that you put in now. Today they call these derivatives, derived off of. So what happens, they created an instrument. They don't even transfer the security. They just create this artificial entity called a derivative. Mm-hmm. Then they turn around, because then they came money on it. I got the deal. I'm sending out these things all of a sudden. And then they put it on everything and put it all into the pension funds and the retirement accounts, and foreign governments bought our derivatives, which were all insured by this insurance company. Now, our stock market, as you know, crashed 14 years ago. When it crashed, the whole stock market crashed, plus one insurance company. Which one was that? AIG, the one insured the derivatives. It had to keep the game going, because AIG also has the pension funds for Congress. So you can see they're going to collect and take care of themselves. So what's going to occur because of what's going on right now, all the Americans that think that they're safe with their retirement accounts, their Social Security, everything else is all in derivatives, and there's no such animal. The whole thing's going to collapse. So rather than doing the world on this thing, let's begin World War III. And that's the reason why, as my sources are saying, it's months away, and get prepared. How do you get prepared? First rule in the universe, gain all knowledge. In other words, you're going to have to spend some time looking. Listen to what I say. If you don't like it, that's okay, but research. Now, I'll give you some clues on what to do if you do have assets you want to save. The same book I just showed you for the money, you're going to need another one. I don't have a very clear one, but this is the only real money that is taken care of right there.
You mean this part?
Yeah. The only thing is, the only real money is used for trade between countries. And what's that? Gold. And this is right out of the book, so you can see exactly what's going on. Interesting? So anyway, now I'm talking about the people, in the United States right now, the plan, part of the Plan 2000 was to call a national emergency at which time everybody's going to have to go to the post office and register and get their new government ID card. which will have all your documentation on you. All your medical records are being shipped to the central places in Kansas City right now, so they can keep track of everybody they want. And then during the same period of time, they asked me to build that enemy prisoner of war camp in downtown Las Vegas. I gave a copy of that to my buddy, Ted Gunderson, the former head of the FBI for Southern California. Ted took it and come back and said, George, we're sitting down here with this stuff. He says, give it to me. I give it to him. He come back and he said, they're building them all over the country, but they changed the name to FEMA camps. That's a Federal Emergency Management Agency, supposedly to round up things that go on. So they're getting that enforced right now. Meanwhile, they're setting things in motion on both sides to get people around it and getting the confusion going on with Europe, Russia, China, and all
But
that.
that will be a huge collapse for the,
There is no cost. It's just going to have people, there would be no money to be debited down there, and we're going to get World War III again, Plan 2000. Jimmy Carter put it in writing, and you find the documents yourself. It says it reduced the population in the United States down to 25 million, and these are all documents.
But
And
you
people, they can't believe that it's going to happen.
okay, but you said that maybe something can be changed from extraterrestrials.
Well, it's not going to be changed because my last message is from the extraterrestrials, which is in my books. There's not enough people to make the change.
No hope.
No hope. And the people that think they have money, it's all going to go away. The population of the United States got 325 million. You got 1,300,000,000 people in China. Yeah, the government of China took me around, and so I got to see before what was going on. And again, I'll never forget my last meeting with them when they told me it's 5,000 years, it's our turn to run the world. Well, they're buying up everything in the world. They bought all the oil in Canada, they got copper in Chile, as you know. They're loaning all the money, use the money that they made off of us with their people. They're building cities over there with their money in them. It's a multiple game, and how do you keep it going? Meanwhile, I'm back to the ETs. There's two different groups of the ETs I'm involved in are what we call the light workers, or the good guys. They're giving us information, and that's in the handbook, Embracing Rainbow Becoming. And if you read all three books, I'll give you the fourth book, but you got to read the other three.
Yeah.
Because we want to get you educated on it. There's no free lunch. This is a do-it-yourself job. There's nobody out here going to save you. There's nobody. Even what Christ said, what I do, you can do in greater, and what you sow, you shall reap. So each one of us have to take on the responsibility. So I'm involved with it, my agreement, because I've already played the big monopoly game on this planet. I mean, you can't believe it. Some of my friends, I did a meeting with all the presidents of Latin America in San Jose, Costa Rica. They all know my story. They know what's coming down, and the best of them are trying to get prepared as best they can. Anyway, that's the story I've got involved with the ETs. The higher as you look at it, and there's no savior. As they said, above all things is the creation. The creation itself is allowing this thing because it's trying to determine what it is.
But
So we're a spark of the creation.
Okay, if this is true,
Yes.
then who was Jesus Christ?
Pardon?
Who was the Jesus Christ?
Emmanuel. His father was Gabriel, who impregnated Mary. Gabriel was an extraterrestrial.
Okay.
It's all set up, and
But-
his real name was Emmanuel, Matthew 1:24.
Yeah.
Jesus was a nickname given to him by Saul of Tarsus, who changed his name to Paul, who rewrote the New Testament.
Okay, what was the role then of this guy?
It was to go around to wake people up. And he did his, for 3 years, he went around, after his crucifixion, he hightailed it off to India. His tomb's in Srinagar, India. He lived to be over 100 and had kids and everything else. I get contact with some of them. They also know, that was his job at that time, to awaken people, trying to get them so he could change the thing. That's what his job, but not as a savior. And they put up the religion deal, so there's how many churches in this town are yours? All of them, that's the opiate or the drug of the masses, because they don't want to take on responsibility. Nobody's going to come save you but you. And they're going to save this body, as you call it, with this rent-a-wreck. But this rent-a-wreck doesn't continue. The you part does, which is connected to your heart. That's where your soul connection is. Your conscious mind takes the information, the soul sorts it all out, and it's connected to your heart. People shouldn't get heart transplants because if they do, they're transferring the soul of that person. They have personality changes.
Really?
Yes. Well, check it out. I'm telling you, I'm making you think a little bit here. Anyways, other people have been, we've had other masters, if you look at it from the past, that had slightly different stories that done there. But Emmanuel's book, I published the Talmud of Emmanuel. Again, we have it on Amazon, we have the book. People can read the writings, but then also, because we had it and we wanted to bring it up to date, we published another book. It's called The Spiritual Laws and Lessons of the Universe. And in that, you have a complete breakdown currently of the logic. In other words, each law, but you got 2 pages of explanation, so there would be no misunderstanding and who and why and why we're here. You want to know why you're here, what's going on, and what's happening now in the United States, for
Do
instance.
you have answers
Yeah, you get all the answers that you want.
from the books?
Yes.
But you cannot say anything right now.
Well,
I mean, with few words, because we have 10 more minutes.
well, I can say a little bit about it. I can talk about your 10 minutes of stuff that you're talking about. The problem that we got involved in is it's like them. You have to have an explanation. Everybody wants to know as a solution. Well, let me tell you some things so you can get prepared. First thing is to get prepared. Today, I'm telling everybody to get 2 to 3 months in small bills or whatever you use as currency because the banks are going to shut down, flat out. So in order to continue the trading game, I mean, they got this all set up. I mean, I have my I go to lunch probably once a week with the state senators or state representatives, and I have friends in Washington, and I have foreign leaders that are presidents. In fact, I bought a coffee farm in Costa Rica from the president of Costa Rica, to give you an idea, Rodrigo Odio at that time. So these are things happen. I go to Ecuador, that's a country that uses the dollar. The president down there just left and went back to Europe. He married a European, so he's left. But the trouble is with all the politics. Politics is 2 words. Did you know that? Poly means many, and ticks are bloodsuckers. They wouldn't be in their position unless they've been agreed to do something. It's like Congress just got through passing a new law without anybody reading it for 1,000 pages. The trouble is like when I was in Los Angeles with the governor out there, in order for the senator to sign off on one of the laws that they put on for the government, they had to give away what he did. He got them, including in the law for the government, to give them, the movie industry, 7 years of free taxes. It's all of the fine print. So you got to go read all the fine print, what they gave away, and it's all part of a big monopoly game. Remember this, somebody else owns the game. Now, the group of people behind the scenes are very smart, very intelligent, and they're just protecting their families. That's what all they're doing. And the groups in there, and I used to run with one all the time. In fact, I joke with him when we went and had lunch with one of the governors. He just said, come on with me. We went and had lunch. I said, let's go have lunch with the president. He had a big cell phone, called on the phone. He had it set up for the next day for me to go have lunch with the president of the United States. These are things that can go on because they can bypass all this stuff. It's a buy and sell deal no matter what. We don't have too many people that are independent like Trump who thinks he's doing it, but he's still got his eyes on the wrong thing, like dividing Mexico along with the... They forget that California was Mexican, Arizona, and they were all part of Mexico originally. Half the
Texas.
Yeah, half the population of these places are Mexican, right? 53% of California is Mexican. There's no difference between it. The only difference between all the races around the planet, their origination. They all come from different star systems. That's the reason why you have different colors. Interesting game, huh?
Actually, I thought about this, especially for Asian people.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
probably it's not easy to recognize who is Korean, who is Japanese and Chinese, but...
They're always set down. Well, go to India. There's 50 different languages in there. You go to, you know, most of, like Australia, that was all what? We got rid of all of the prisoners that they had and they sent them down to Australia. They sit down. I was down in Australia with in the outback, that with an Aborigine. I'll never forget this. I'm out with two of my buddies and we just flew out. I'm just exploring the world, frankly. Little Aborigine appeared. I don't know where he came from. And he says, "What are you here for?" I said, "Look, I'm just exploring the outback, you know." And sitting down there looking at it. And he says, "Are you a missionary?" I said, "No, I'm not." And he says, "Oh, good." He says, "All the missionaries coming down here try to, you know, they had to go to their God." He says, and he pointed up to the sky. And he said, "You see that up there?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's my God. I can live without your God. You couldn't live without mine." He was pointing to the sun. Is he right?
Yeah.
The Aborigines happen to be the last go-round of the planet. There's a couple groups, the Aborigines were one of them, that were here from the last time. So that's,
So, I mean, because it's just 5 more minutes, but, I mean, you said that there is not hope, so we cannot do
no,
it.
I didn't say there's hope. I just say there's a limited amount of hope. Some of these people
Yeah,
who
what can
wake
be-
up to
what-
do it might be able to have the ability to be taken off the planet.
Who?
Whoever wakes up by reading the 3 books, you're gonna be you want to get your thought tuned into the creation so you can continue. You don't die anyway, but your journey may continue on with something.
I mean, even if we die, we just change the different.
The rent-a-wreck, you go, except for this
Yeah.
planet, this is the ending of a 50,000 year cycle, a 26,000 year cycle, and this could be the ending for a lot of things. So you don't get yourself in a position, you want to continue your journey any way you can.
Right. Just the body will be changed.
Exactly,
Yes.
except for, I don't think I want to have all the dead people laying out on the street here along with all this stuff, and then responsible for cleaning the thing up, because we don't have that ability to do that. They just said, you know, when they're looking at their estimation of having 25 million Americans left, and I do know they wanted to use neutron bombs on the major cities, because that's where they have the people don't do anything, they consume everything in the cities, but it's easier to take care of it. The people like it because they have all the, you know, stuff that's going on and taken care of, but that isn't the way it works. So you and I have to figure out, okay, what's going on. Now, for the extraterrestrials, yeah, I got pictures of me. I was out in southeast Colorado, just about 20 miles from Denver, where the crop circle landed. Crop circle was out there, the craft came down, but it was an extraterrestrial doing geophysical work on the planet. They drilled a huge hole down there, but what happened is the circle, all the soil was melted. It was like lava in the middle of the field. I got samples of that. Then that's to give you an idea. I get pictures of that. I was in the Denver Post, and they put big pictures of all that stuff on it. Then I flew down to South America. There's a group of ETs that look just like us, that are plants. In other words, they're plants. So we sit down there, but they gave us a cure for cancer. I took a sample of it. I flew the sample to Chemitox Labs in Boulder, Colorado. I also gave a copy of the analysis to Dr. Alan Hynek. He got the information because he says, "I'll get it out there." That's when I found out that Dr. Alan Hynek was on the CIA's payroll.
Yeah, it is.
I know. I'm just, yeah.
But
It's all corrupted. It's a bigger story. It's about everything's connected that way.
yeah, but also he make some disclose.
You can put out some information and then just have everybody, then you believe everything. Or you can have the president say something, or they put things out there, whatever they have that. Well, the real key is to get everybody interested in what? Sports and entertainment. What are we doing all this month? Hey, it's the Olympics down in South Korea. They don't tell you about what's going on behind the scenes. And they can't, because people cannot adjust to it. Right now in the States, there's so many people that are out of work, you have no idea. And then if you do it, like my son's a senior engineer, he's been laying off a lot of his engineers, and he's a nuclear physicist.
Yeah.
So it's a real game. Now, he just come back, he was in Indonesia down there. They were supposed to do a $2 billion project, and they put him, he was in Russia for 3.5 years in the secret cities. And he said the Russians are about 12 years ahead of us on nuclear as well as
Do you know something about Kapustin Yard?
about Putin.
Kapustin Yard
Yeah.
is the secret military base in Russia, like Area 51, kind of.
Yeah, well, Area 51 is really not, that was just another fold on it. Really, the area is S4. That's where all the alien craft were down in there. And the rest of the parts and stuff were in the right pad and a couple. I mean, I became a good close friend of mine was an Apollo astronaut, Brian O'Leary, and he's left the country. He flew down to Vilcabamba in Ecuador. Now I helped him build his house. We thought we'd use that, but he just died. I'm told as we're getting older, you can't, the game keeps changing because you got young people coming in on it, and most of the young ones, well, in the United States, they don't even know how to read or write anymore. It's all done by computer.
Yeah.
And they don't teach history. History is 2 words, his story, always written by the victor, right? So anyway, that's basically my story of the connection with the extraterrestrials, and here we are on this time frame, 2018, and it doesn't look very good for the next couple of years, frankly. Next few months are going to be, I'm waiting for June because that's where I'm hearing could be the point where they start triggering everything. I'm hoping that your listeners and everybody else will get their food stored up at least. I forget about the guns and the weapons. You want to be away from major cities. Most
For
people.
1 month, 2 months?
Well, you got
To prepare food for 1 month, 2 months?
Well, the governor of California this last week has told all the Californians to store up about 3 months because they're expecting the San Andreas to break loose. And when I was in California, I owned a city block in Beverly Hills. We had an earthquake out there and the buildings next to me were destroyed. Well, because of my background of being in geophysics, I wanted to know what the heck's going on. So I flew to Sacramento and I talked to the FEMA head up there, and they showed me their documents, and it appears that the San Andreas is going to go all the way down through, Palm Springs, et cetera, on down. So then I flew down to Phoenix and I talked to the FEMA people down here. I said, you guys aware of it? And they're totally aware that this is going to come down too. They're prepared to put tent cities on the border from California because they wouldn't be able to take care of what's going on. What do you do with all the people trying to get out of town? Well, they've only got a couple highways coming out
They
anyway.
can start evacuation from right now
Pardon?
to evacuate it somewhere.
That's right. So anyway, they're planning on doing tent cities along the border to keep people from coming over. And Arizona's
For
got
the
enough
earthquake or?
from the earthquake. Meanwhile, we have a possibility of getting the war started. It could all happen simultaneously because of what's going on in Alaska too. Or the earthquakes that are happening may trigger all the way down, could trigger down in Ecuador. They just got you having one that was 30 miles long, wiped out the whole coast.
California is sensitive for earthquakes?
Yes.
It's very sensitive.
It's very sensitive, ready to go. So anyway, you're asking, that's geophysical because the planet's getting ready to flip on its axis. It's already, the North Pole's already shifted. Do your check-in. We're getting ready for this major changes all over. So I looked at it, the safest places would be south of the equator. Well, got another problem. Because we started exploding, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the first nuclear bombs exploded in 1908 in Tagungsta, Siberia. And they were done, you've heard of that explosion.
You mean
Yeah, the
Tunguska?
Yes, Sangusta was a nuclear bomb. The Germans did it. Anyway, it went off into a higher atmosphere, that and other ones, and between that and the experiments that we did in New Mexico putting up missiles, we put a band of radiation that's 4 miles thick around the entire planet.
So you say the Germans did that?
Yes,
But
the Germans did it.
how this bomb reached to?
Well, we have the documents for it, they tell you.
No. How that reached this area? I mean, it's too far.
Oh, not from here, there, they took.
Yeah, no, I mean from Germany to Tunguska, it's too far.
They didn't know. They took the missile up and fired it from Tagungsta. That's where it started.
Oh, they exploded there?
That's right.
Oh, right.
Anyway, they also went to the higher atmosphere, which has put this 4 mile thick radiation, which is eating holes through the ozone layer, which is allowing the gamma and ultraviolet rays to come down on the surface of the planet. We're killing off 1,000 life forms a day.
This is new for me.
It's what?
It's new for me.
Well, but am I does it make any sense to you?
Yeah,
Well, the universe is logical. Mysterious, maybe. Don't make it mystical.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, we can finish now. It's 1 hour and 5 minutes. Thank you very much for your time and sharing all these stories. I just
I'm giving you a little history you didn't know.